The WNBA just handed Sophie Cunningham an official warning that has the entire basketball world questioning everything. A harmless 20-second joke about Angel Reese turned into a full-blown scandal that exposed the darkest double standard in professional sports. What started as playful banter has now become the biggest controversy of 2025, and the league's response proves what fans have suspected all along. There's a hierarchy in women's basketball, and if you're not in the protected class, you better watch your mouth. Before we dive into this explosive situation, make sure to hit that like button if you think Sophie deserves better treatment from the league. Your support matters more than you know. Sophie Cunningham, now proudly wearing number 8 for the Indiana Fever after her shocking move from Phoenix, made what she thought was an innocent comment during a podcast appearance. She was talking about her new diet restrictions when she dropped this bomb. "I guess I'm gonna turn into a Victoria's Secret model. Call me Angel Reese." That's it. That's the comment that sent Commissioner Kathy Engelbert into damage control mode faster than you can say double standard. Within hours, Sophie received an official disciplinary notice, something that hasn't happened for far worse offenses in this league. But here's what makes this situation absolutely insane. Just weeks earlier, A'ja Wilson was openly mocking critics who pointed out she gets favorable calls from referees. "The only special whistle I know," she said with a smirk during the Aces championship celebration. "No warning, no discipline, nothing." The same commissioner who stayed silent when players were literally throwing elbows at Caitlin Clark throughout the 2024 season suddenly found her voice when Sophie made a fashion joke. The hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a knife. What happened next would shock everyone who thought they understood how the WNBA operates. The internet exploded into a war zone within minutes of Sophie's comment going viral. She was called everything from a racist to a clout chaser, with major WNBA fan accounts leading the charge. The attacks were vicious, personal, and completely disproportionate to what she actually said. Angel Reese did walk the Victoria's Secret runway. That's a fact. Sophie referenced it, also a fact. But somehow, stating reality became a punishable offense in Engelbert's WNBA. The timing of this controversy couldn't be more suspicious. Sophie Cunningham has been building her media empire throughout 2025, becoming one of the most unfiltered voices in women's basketball. Her podcast appearances generate millions of views, and she's not afraid to speak truth to power. She understands that mentioning Angel Reese or Caitlin Clark guarantees trending status within an hour, and she used that knowledge strategically. This wasn't some random slip of the tongue. It was calculated media brilliance that threatened the league's carefully controlled narrative. But that wasn't the whole story about why the league overreacted so dramatically. Sources close to the situation reveal that Engelbert has been looking for an excuse to silence Sophie ever since she joined the Fever and started vocally supporting Caitlin Clark. The commissioner knows that having two of the league's most marketable white players on the same team, both with massive social media followings, creates a power dynamic she can't control. Sophie's joke gave her the perfect opportunity to send a message: stay in line or face consequences. Here's where things get really interesting. While Sophie faces disciplinary action for a harmless joke, Angel Reese continues to mock opponents without any pushback from the league office. Just last week, she posted on social media making fun of players who complained about physical play, clearly targeting the Fever roster. No warning. Dijanai Carrington can literally poke Caitlin Clark in the eye during a playoff game. No suspension. But Sophie makes a Victoria's Secret reference? Emergency meeting at league headquarters. The double standard becomes even more obvious when you look at the numbers. A'ja Wilson shot 19 free throws in the finals clinching game, more than the entire Phoenix Mercury team combined. When Sophie pointed this out on her podcast earlier this month, she was told by league officials to be more careful with her commentary. Meanwhile, Wilson herself jokes about getting special treatment, and it's considered championship swagger. The message is clear. Certain players are untouchable, and others better know their place. What makes this whole situation even more ridiculous is that Sophie's comment wasn't even mean-spirited. She was making fun of her own diet restrictions, saying she'd have to eat like a rabbit and jokingly comparing herself to Angel Reese's modeling career. It's the kind of playful banter that happens in every locker room across professional sports. But in the WNBA of 2025, context doesn't matter if you're not part of the protected class. The reaction from fans has been explosive, with over 3 million people engaging with the story in the first 48 hours. Supporters of Sophie and Caitlin Clark are calling this the final straw, proof that the league has an agenda against certain players. They're pointing out that when Caitlin hosted Saturday Night Live, she was criticized for being distracted. But when Angel walks fashion shows, she's empowered. When Sophie makes a joke about it, she's problematic. The inconsistency is destroying the league's credibility. But here's the part nobody's talking about. This controversy is exactly what Sophie wanted. She's smart enough to know that controversy drives engagement, and engagement drives influence. By making that comment, she inserted herself into the biggest storyline in women's basketball without actually saying anything offensive. She tested the system, and the system exposed itself by overreacting. Now she's the most talked about player in the league besides Caitlin Clark, and her podcast numbers are through the roof. The commissioner's response has been nothing short of embarrassing. Instead of treating this like the non-issue it is, Engelbert released a statement about maintaining professional standards and respecting all players regardless of background. This is the same commissioner who said nothing when Caitlin Clark was being physically targeted game after game. The same one who ignored calls for better officiating when the Fever were getting demolished by no calls in the playoffs. But Sophie makes a fashion joke? Time for official statements and disciplinary action. What's really happening here is bigger than one joke or one player. The WNBA is at a crossroads in 2025. On one side, you have the old guard, players like Aja Wilson and the established stars who want to maintain the status quo. On the other, you have the new wave, Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and others who are bringing unprecedented attention to the league. The old guard sees them as threats, and the commissioner is caught in the middle, clearly choosing sides instead of being neutral. The Indiana Fever organization has been notably silent throughout this controversy, which speaks volumes. They know Sophie is right, but they can't publicly support her without facing league backlash. Behind closed doors, sources say the team is furious about the double standard, especially after watching their players get abused all season without protection from officials. Now, one of their own makes a harmless joke and suddenly the league finds its disciplinary backbone. It's a joke, but nobody's laughing. Here's what makes this even more frustrating for Fever fans. Sophie Cunningham has been nothing but professional since joining Indiana. She's elevated Caitlin Clark's game, brought veteran leadership to a young roster, and helped transform the team into a legitimate contender. Her chemistry with Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin has been incredible to watch. But instead of celebrating that, the league wants to make an example of her for daring to have a personality. The racial component of this controversy can't be ignored, even though Sophie's comment had nothing to do with race. Every interaction between white and black players in the WNBA gets filtered through a racial lens, whether warranted or not. Sophie knows this, the league knows this, and they're all playing a game where the rules keep changing depending on who's involved. When Angel Reese cried about being sexualized, it was a powerful moment. When she walks a lingerie runway months later, it's empowerment. When Sophie points out the irony, it's racism. Make it make sense. What happened next in this saga proves the league has completely lost control of its narrative. Players from around the WNBA started subtly supporting Sophie on social media, liking posts that defended her and sharing content that highlighted the double standard. Even some of Angel Reese's teammates privately admitted the punishment was excessive. But publicly? Silence. Because everyone knows speaking up means potentially facing the same treatment. The most shocking revelation came when leaked emails showed league officials discussing how to manage the Sophie situation days before she even made the comment. They were already monitoring her podcast appearances, concerned about her growing influence. The Victoria's Secret joke just gave them the excuse they were looking for. This wasn't about one comment. It was about control, power, and keeping certain voices from getting too loud. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark has been navigating this controversy carefully, supporting her teammate without directly challenging the league. She knows she's already on thin ice after speaking out about officiating earlier this season. The fact that the league's biggest star has to walk on eggshells while others can say whatever they want tells you everything about the current state of the WNBA. It's not about growing the game anymore. It's about protecting certain narratives and certain players. The financial implications of this controversy are already being felt. Sophie's jersey sales have skyrocketed since the warning, with Fever fans rallying behind her. Her podcast has gained over 200,000 new subscribers in 72 hours. She's turned league punishment into personal profit, which probably irritates Engelbert even more. The commissioner wanted to silence her, but instead made her more powerful than ever. But that wasn't the whole story about how other players are responding behind the scenes. Multiple sources confirm that several high-profile players have reached out to Sophie privately, expressing support and frustration with the league's selective enforcement. They're tired of the double standard but afraid to speak up. Sophie has become a martyr for every player who's been told to shut up and dribble while watching others get away with murder. The league's credibility is in shambles, and this controversy is just the latest example. Fans are tired of the obvious bias, the selective enforcement, and the protection of certain players at the expense of others. Sophie Cunningham's warning isn't just about one joke. It's about a broken system that punishes honesty while rewarding hypocrisy. The WNBA claims to be about empowerment and equality, but actions speak louder than press releases. As we head into the second half of the 2025 season, this controversy will define how fans view the league. Sophie Cunningham has become a symbol of resistance against a corrupt system, whether she intended to or not. Her joke exposed the rot at the core of the WNBA's leadership, and no amount of official warnings can put that genie back in the bottle. The league wanted to make an example of her, but instead, she made an example of them. The question now isn't whether Sophie was wrong. She clearly wasn't. The question is how long the WNBA can maintain this charade before fans completely lose faith. Every time Engelbert protects certain players while punishing others, she damages the league's reputation. Every double standard pushes more fans away. And Sophie Cunningham? She'll keep speaking her truth, warning or no warning, because that's what real leaders do. If you think the WNBA needs to apologize to Sophie Cunningham, drop a comment below and let your voice be heard. This league only changes when fans demand it, and your support matters now more than ever. The Blonde Bomber isn't backing down, and neither should you.